I'm Brian Clark. Coming up, Americans in their 50s and over opting to go it alone. The reasons behind the uptick in what's being called gray divorces. But first, this week, the U.S. Supreme Court heard arguments for and against state bans on gender-affirming health care for children and teens. 26 states have banned this type of care for minors, which includes puberty blockers and hormone therapy. Proponents of the bans say they are protecting kids from making decisions that are tough to reverse. But those in favor of the treatment say they're pivotal to helping transgender kids live happy, healthy lives, and that the government should not be involved. ABC's Devin Dwyer talks to the Tennessee family who brought the lawsuit to the nation's high court.
I didn't feel like I could claim the label of woman because I didn't feel like I was there yet.
16-year-old LW, who asked us not to show her face, came out to her parents as transgender when she was in 7th grade.
I did ask questions, like, is this just a phase?
Insistent, consistent, persistent. And that's what they use with kids and young adults to see, make sure this isn't a phase.
Samantha and Brian Williams and their Nashville, Tennessee community were supportive of LW, but she said that couldn't cure the pain she felt inside, a deep disconnect between her gender assigned at birth and her identity. Doctors called the distress gender dysphoria. After months of doctor's visits and therapy sessions, LW and her parents decided to use medication to delay puberty. They worried that masculine changes to her body could compound the gender dysphoria. Major American medical associations have endorsed the treatments as part of individually tailored interventions to support trans kids and affirm their sense of self.
She's not suicidal, but she shouldn't have to be suicidal to get the care that she needs. I think really the big difference was when I got on hormones. That was incredibly helpful. I feel amazing after that.
But in 2023, Tennessee lawmakers moved to ban the treatments LW was receiving.
Without objection, the motion to reconsider goes to table.
Citing contradictory scientific evidence and uncertainty about long-term harm.
The parents feel like you're taking away something that has dramatically improved the life of their child.
We made the policy decision on behalf of our constituents that in Tennessee, we think this is a risky procedure.
Shouldn't a parent and a child and a doctor be able to make that decision themselves?
Well, there are many kids, though, who feel differently, who have reached adulthood and have major regrets.
Your critics say you're telling parents, your constituents, that you know better.
You can't get a tattoo in the state of Tennessee if you're under the age of 18. We don't let you smoke cigarettes. We don't let you purchase or consume alcohol.
To keep receiving the treatments that were making LW's life better, the Williams family now has to travel out of state. 26 states have laws banning gender-affirming treatments for minors. Critics say they discriminate since the same drugs remain legal for kids who are not transgender.
LW said something to me. She was like, I don't think you see me. And it broke my heart, And I want to listen to the doctors, and I want to listen to my kid, and I want to take care of him,
The Williams family sued Tennessee last year, alleging its ban on gender-affirming care for minors violates the Constitution. The U.S. Supreme Court will hear their landmark appeal.
What's your message to other trans teenagers out there?
When you do end up getting on gender-affirming care and all that, not just are you going to feel better, you're going to enjoy it. It's worth it.
ABC's Devin Dwyer reporting. 23andMe, the private genetic testing and ancestry company, is in a major restructuring mode after recently laying off 40% of its workforce. A major data breach last year affected nearly 7 million customers. The company agreed to pay out a $30 million settlement for that breach. Some customers who have given over their sensitive personal information to the company might feel uneasy. Genetic counselor Dina Goldberg discusses what people can do with ABC's Diane Macedo.
23andMe's consider this direct-to-consumer genetic testing company. Transactions with the companies are considered commercial. It's not medical. It's not protected by HIPAA. So how does this affect the privacy of those customers' genetic information? And what information was released during this breach? What are you worried about going forward?
I can't speak to exactly what was released during this breach, but I can say that as someone who works a lot with genetic data, that it is something that anytime you are giving your data, your biological specimen to any commercial company or really any company at all, it is something to consider what they're doing with that information. And typically when we're talking about genetic information, it usually is stored very securely. And usually there's consent forms to sign and to fill out that will explain what they're doing with your data. So that is something that I like to tell people to make sure you read through and can ask questions about before you're submitting that data.
Now, do you think 23andMe, this data breach, will make people more cautious in how they release their genetic information?
Yeah, I do. I think that it can, that anytime there's a data breach, it can make people a little bit more weary about giving their genetic information. But I do think it's really important that we think about the benefits to doing genetic testing. And I truly believe that they highly outweigh the risks of there being a potential data breach. I think there's so much information that we can get. Genetics really is the future of healthcare, and there's so many ways that it can be life-changing. So really, it's a balance of really understanding those benefits over the risks of a data breach.
Now, ABC News got a statement from 23andMe after that breach saying, and I'm going to quote here, "We have strong customer privacy protection in place. 23andMe does not share customer data with third parties without customers' consent, and our research program is opt-in, requiring customers to go through a separate informed consent process before joining." So what do you make of that, particularly with where the company is now?
For anyone that's done it recently, there are a lot of forms that you will need to fill out. And when we talk about consent forms, that's you giving permission for them to use your data. And so any type of company that is going to be using genetic information or in the healthcare space at all should be collecting consent, because that's, again, you allowing them to use your data. It's really important to understand what they're using it for. And I think that all of these companies, it's their responsibility to be as transparent as possible, and really explain what they're going to be doing it. And going forward, any company that's going to be handling genetic information, really has that responsibility to the public and to their consumers.
So why is genetic testing so important, and how do you think this kind of information can help you make important health decisions?
As a genetic counselor who works in genetic testing, I can tell you that it can be used through all areas of medicine. So typically people always think about genetic testing as something you do when you're planning a family, or maybe someone who's gone through cancer, but it can be really used in all areas. And that can be somebody who has an undiagnosed disease that maybe needs some answers. And it can be helping people who are healthy understand what they can do to, and what they're at risk for, and what to do to lower that risk. So to really personalize it. There are so many parts of our healthcare and so many potential uses for the future that, it's the future of medicine and of personalizing our healthcare.
Genetic counselor Dina Goldberg with ABC's Diane Macedo. Coming up, upbeat, emo, or mellow. How our music apps are honed in on our moods and fine-tuned our tastes in 2024. It's on Perspective after this.